Hi everyone, this is Sweta Ragmi streaming live from Canada. I'm a career consultant. I'm a founder and CEO at Teach and Do. I teach do's and don'ts to job seekers in Canada, especially newcomers who are qualified but getting rejected because of no Canadian experience barrier. I also work closely with the laid-off people who are facing that overqualified rejections, dealing with the ageism. I also work closely with the people who want to switch and go where they are celebrated. So today I have an amazing guest. She is a hiring manager. She's done thousands of interviews, and we're going to go through most common questions where you're struggling, and that's why you're not getting those job offers. We might think those are simple and basic questions, but if you happen to not answer that question strategically, you might not be getting hired. So if you are one of those who are dealing with that confidence issues and examples that you need to bring along when it comes to interview, we're going to talk about all those common questions, and we'll be taking your questions as well. Feel free to chime in on the comments as well. Also, if you're hiring managers, recruiter, feel free to ask any questions that you would love to hear from the candidates. What kind of question they should be asking, what kind of questions that it stumps you. All right, so let's get it going. I'm going to bring my guest, Anu Adewala, and then she's going to introduce all those questions and how she, as a hiring manager, expects you to answer those questions. Everyone is different, but let's hear it from the subject matter expert. I'll bring Anu right now. She's backstage waiting for me. Hi, Anu. Welcome to my show. Tell us about yourself. This is your interview now.
Excellent. Well, I have more than 20 years experience in leadership positions, helping organizations like Win Mobile and Cisco Connect get started up, and helping established organizations such as Toronto Parking Authority, Cooperators, and Rogers transform. In my career, my focus has been on driving growth, improving operational excellence and customer service, and most importantly, building great places to work. I have a real passion for people, both inside and outside of work. So I mentor new immigrants to Canada and youth from underserved areas of Toronto, and I assist them in understanding the Canadian job market, getting their resume and LinkedIn profile up to Canadian standards, and preparing for interviews. And I also volunteer my time as a speaker and subject matter expert on the advisory board of the Greater Toronto Area Contact Center Association. And recently, I started learning Spanish through an app called Duolingo.
That is amazing. You know what? I love it. I love how you put it all together in less than, I think, 2 minutes. And that's a really great sample for those people who are struggling on these questions. And it's going to happen every time you go meet someone in networking, every time you go on a job interview. The first question would be, tell me about yourself. So I would definitely want you to take away that sample. Anu just gave it because I told her, listen, we got to do the sample on tell me about yourself. And she nailed it. What I liked about that was how she ended up, a little bit of personal touch. So tell me, why did you do that? Why was it important for you to do that?
You know what? In an interview, you always want to be memorable. So could there be other people in that interview that have 20 years of experience? Sure, there could be. Could there be other people who mentor people? Sure, there could be. But there's very few that have all of those things, plus they're learning Spanish too. And you kind of, all of the things that I talked about, they address companies that I worked at, they address some of the key words from the job posting that I know are interesting to them because they put it in their job posting. So I wanted to make sure that I address those things. I mentioned what I do as far as the passion for people. These are all really important things to talk about. It's actually, I've timed it myself, so it's actually about a minute that is. And, you know, I've had people come into interviews and go through every single job in their interview while they're asked that question, or they talk about a lot of personal things. All of the things I mentioned, other than learning Spanish, are professional. But even the learning Spanish, if somebody has businesses that are worldwide, that can help. That also goes to me learning, right? And people appreciate that you're learning. So it's professional. It's a good summary that way.
I love it. I love it. And I like that personal touch as well. And I love the fact that you brought that up. Maybe it's a role requirement and you don't even know, like, maybe there's a requirement out there. If that's Spanish is something, it might not be a role requirement, but you might be managing team, outsourcing team as well, right? And I love that approach of putting it strategically whenever you put the personal touch. And I did that too during my job seeking days when I got laid off. I purposefully put that small touch on it if I knew that I would be probably doing some kind of fundraising in charity or event management. So I would say things like that, when I'm not working, you would find me fundraising or leading some charity events, right? So, I knew the role requirements sometimes would be one of those. So it gave me that meaningful connection as well. Plus, it's more kind of like, okay, well, you know what, they're putting a checklist, and that's beautiful. So let me see if there's how many people are watching. And I feel like today is going to be slow day. It's a Remembrance Day in Canada as well, and we definitely have to thank those people who've actually committed to our personal things around in Canada. And you know what, thank you so much for coming in and making a time today to watch this program. And hopefully you are going to take away so many nuggets from Anu today. And we're going to move in quickly with the questions. So if you have any questions, type it in the comments. We might pick it as well. So what's the next question you want to tackle, Anu? So I'm just going to go and see if you have it.
So the one thing I wanted to just add here, sometimes, people think of, oh, these virtual interviews are so terrible. But the advantage of having a virtual interview is that you can have your notes up on your screen. And you can be referring to those notes while you're talking. So some people might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of information to remember. I have notes up on my screen, and you want to just kind of make sure that you're not like reading off your notes or looking at another, like looking far away. You want to be looking at the interviewer while you're answering. But a cheat or a trick is that you can have notes in front of you while you're answering those questions. I just wanted to make sure for any question that people know that they can have them right in front of them. And it's quite an advantage of the remote interview.
Absolutely. You know what? That's a good point. I do that too. I have this over here. I'm going to show you. Like normally when I'm going live or doing anything, meeting call or something, I put this like right in front of my desk and I try to see, and I read it as well. Sometimes the stickies, have you used the sticky note as well? That helps too.
Yes.
That's amazing. So, and that way it's a great point because you're not losing. Now I'm losing you because I'm not watching in the camera. So then what happens is when you're doing the interview, you don't want to lose that eye contact as well, right? That's a great point, especially in the interview. And I'm looking at the camera right now when I'm talking. I'm not looking at Anu, and that's a great point as well. You brought that up as well. And like when I'm looking at Anu right now, right? So I want to make sure that, I'm connected with the audience when I'm talking, which is you, whoever's watching me. But when I'm talking to Anu right now, I'm talking to Anu. So make sure you follow the camera, look at the camera directly when you're answering the questions. All right. So I have a bunch of questions now. I'm going to put you in a hot seat.
Sure. I'm ready.
This question comes up quite often. Why did you leave? Let's talk about why did you leave for those people who are no longer employed. And we're going to talk about why do you want to leave on the second stage. So how do you address that question? Why do you leave? Let's say you left because of you were laid off or you were fired or you had a toxic environment that you had to quit. Like, how do you strategically say it without sounding like, you're bad mouthing?
Well, that's the most important thing, is to never sound like you're bad mouthing. So I'll give you as an example. So if you were to ask me that in an interview, well, I really enjoyed working at XYZ company. because the people were dedicated and really wanted the company to succeed. I felt that during my time there, I was able to make a difference, building a better place to work, because morale and engagement was really low when I first started. Earlier this year, a new leader was brought in, and as typically happens, there was some restructuring. So now I'm looking forward to the next step in my career.
Awesome. That's exactly what I was laid off. So, I know being laid off, it just hurts to the core. There's something like, I can't speak for you or someone else, but I can speak based on my experience was like, it's almost like, yeah, you didn't get fired, you got laid off, but at least you kind of feel like, okay, you gave away so much for that work. And then all of a sudden, you know what, you don't have a title and you feel that bitterness. That's why it's really, really, really hard to actually not say bad things about the previous employer. So you got to heal, you got to take away the bad stuff and what you learn. I love that, what you said, what you learn, and then move on to what are you excited about? Look forward, not look behind, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Keep it positive, definitely, because you're right. It's easy to make it negative because you have those feelings. So again, it's okay. You're preparing. This is part of your preparation for an interview. If you do not prepare, then it's easy to let those emotions in.
Oh my God, yes. I cannot believe so many times I was so close, right? And I'm like, hold it, hold it. So let's focus on what the job posting has. The good part that I really liked about this. And then, you know what? That's why I'm going to come with an expertise and I'm going to do this better. And because I've done it already, right? Focusing on the past and then what the job description has to go through it. Now let's talk about, let's say, why do you want to leave? Maybe you want to leave the toxic environment and maybe there's a dead end, maybe something that you're not liking. Obviously, people just don't leave, right? Money or work-life balance. There's so many reasons, but how do you put it strategically? Why do you want to leave?
So it's similar to the previous answer, but with some slight tweaks. So I've really enjoyed working at XYZ company because the people are really fun to work with and the products are amazing. Or you could talk about the technology there. I feel that during my time, I've been able to make a big difference being top salesperson and providing world-class customer experiences. And now I'm looking forward to the next step in my career where I can learn new things and grow even more. And I hope that you'll give me that opportunity.
That's great, right? So you're actually saying that you want to grow. So strategically, you said there was a dead end without saying it.
Exactly. It's all about the strategy, right? And you've got to be positive and come across as that person who really wants this position because you do, and not come across as, well, it's a dead end. I don't have anywhere to go, and that's why.
Yes. And it's like, it's not coming across as, I was so bored because every job out there, we're not going to like 100%. Let's be real, right? There's no, I do believe that there's no job out there. It's like 100% you love it because I am a consultant, but there are certain things I don't love it. So I outsource it. Right. So you don't want to sound like I got bored and I'm moving on. So, and then the employer is going to catch it and think like, well, it's going to be boring. I don't think the person is going to be here for long term. They're going to be using us as a stepping stone because you don't know who are you dealing with. Some hiring managers are not going to train you for a couple of months so you can move out, right? So you'd be very strategic about how do you answer it. Is it the goal that you want to go through because you didn't find it? Is it the toxic work? Then you're going to put it somewhere positively, not talk about like my boss is bad. What do you think? What do you think? What else can you tell us about this? If let's say they go like, what are the least part of job that, that you really hate, don't like? It's kind of like caters into the same area. How would you answer that?
It's really about talking about the challenges, right? Like every job has got challenges and has some great things. And so thinking about what some of those challenges are. So, and putting them in a positive light, like whether it's, I really, the training, I love to grow and I love to learn. And I found that the systems that they had didn't have all of the training that I would love to have, So what I did was I learned using YouTube. And so you're talking about, I wanted to learn and I found other ways, but I wanted to have systems that were that allowed me to train or to, those kinds of things. You've got to be, it is a bit, as you mentioned earlier, strategic, where you don't want to say, my boss didn't meet with me enough, I'd like to be met with on a weekly basis, because you don't know, does this company have managers that meet with you on a weekly basis? Maybe they don't. And so if you say, I want to be met with on a weekly basis, now you could be shooting yourself in the foot where, okay, this person's going to need a lot of attention.
Oh my God, you got it. Honestly, I love that, because if you don't know what kind of culture, what kind of coaching environment they have, it has actually happened to one of my clients. Let me bring that up. So he went from the environment where it's like top corporate world to the unionized. And in unionized, they don't do certain thing. They don't do the performance review at all. They're not allowed to in certain sectors.
Yeah.
And he was hoping there's a performance, appraisal coming up. Like, no, it's like, I don't know, what am I doing wrong? I don't know anything, right? So, and then he started going, he wanted to switch. And then and then I told him to ask, if that's really important to you, bring it up in an interview, and said, don't just sit on the last minute. Do you have any questions? You can then, if it's really important to you, bring it up and say, in my last role, there was a sometimes there's too much coaching, actually, micromanagement to the point. Sometimes there's the coaching which is just needed. Sometimes there's no coaching at all, right? So you're going to strategically put it out there and say, may I ask, what is the coaching environment here? How often do you coach staff? Is there a performance review? Can you walk me through the process, right? How is the performance being measured and everything? And when you get that, and then you can say, well, you know what? Honestly, that feels great, because unfortunately, we don't have that environment there, and I'm excited to join in, right? So you are tying it up with that understanding, and client got the job, and he was super happy about it. Mm-hmm. But then, you know what? That's what mattered to them. And that's why you don't go out there and say, my boss did not coach me.
Right.
Right.
And your key, it's really important, Swetha, that you said those key things that are really important to you, like maybe coaching, you do want to ask those questions. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end about, what questions to ask. But if that's something that's really important, you should ask, because the whole interview process, it's a decision for you and for the hiring company. So if the hiring company, you ask that question and the hiring company says, you know what, our managers coach once a month, and maybe that's not enough for you, that should be a deciding factor for you. And so you should ask those questions that are key deal breakers for you at the end. And again, coaching could be one of those things, or training and onboarding, those could be deal breakers.
Absolutely. And and I'd like to say, one size does not fit all. I'd like to be managed differently than the other people. The other people would like to be managed differently. They want constant coaching. Some people are like, leave me alone, too much coaching. One of my clients, actually, who got multiple offers, newcomers in Canada, he wanted to go into this environment. It was constant coaching. He couldn't take it. He quit. He got the other job he wanted. And I said, listen, if you go into the same environment, you're going to be constantly coached. Are you up for that? Right? So he quit. Right? So, and it's funny that we all think how coaching is really important, but for some, it's not important.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Oh my God, this is a good one for me. What are your salary expectations? Oh gosh, this, let me tell viewers right now, whoever's watching, this could be any day. It could be initial screening. If you don't get it right, you're not going to be passing on to the second stage, because they all have a budget, right? And then if you get it wrong, then get it wrong, then you're stuck if they offer you with a low ball as well. So you got to be very strategic about it. So I know, how would you answer these questions, or what do you expect to hear as a hiring manager?
Yeah. So this is a tough one to answer, because you don't want to sell yourself short. You don't want to go too low. You don't want to go too high, rule yourself out. But the key thing is knowing what your value is and what's important to you. So if you really need $18 an hour or $20 an hour to pay your bills, then again, you shouldn't be saying 18, because you can't pay your bills and you wouldn't accept that position anyway. So you've got to be realistic here. So a lot of positions that I've found, I've been, looking online as well for positions, a lot of them don't mention the pay rate. And I don't know why. I wish they did, because it would make things a lot easier. People wouldn't apply for positions that weren't within their pay range. if they could see what the pay range was. Whoop.
Sorry, I just turned it on. Okay, go on.
That's okay. So sometimes I ask, what is the pay range? I didn't see it listed on LinkedIn. Do you mind telling me what the pay range is? And, typically any person in HR who's hiring will have a pay range, so they'll be able to tell you. Now, you have to listen to that pay range and know, is the middle okay for me? Is the highest okay? Yeah. Was I expecting more? Because sometimes it's a question mark. So if you are okay with that range, I would never start at the bottom of the range. I would start at the middle or the highest, depending on your skills and qualifications, right? So knowing that a company would hire somebody at the highest range, the highest level of the range with lots of years of experience, or middle range if they've got kind of medium or some experience. So start at the medium or high, depending on your qualifications. If you're higher than what they say, so let's say they say 15 to 18 and you want 20. It's okay to say, honestly, I was making around 20 previously, and that's what I was expecting. And I can add a lot of value. So tell them why you should get 20. I do have X number of years of experience. I believe that I can add a lot of value in this position, and here's why. The other thing you can talk about is, kind of a more generic answer. So I'll give you this one here. I was making $18 an hour at my last position. As long as an offer takes into account my qualifications, I'm open to discussing specific numbers, as I understand that an offer can contain other components of value other than salary, such as bonuses, benefits, and vacation days. So I'm definitely willing to take a look at an offer.
Okay.
And so that opens it up as well. It gives them a starting of, hey, I was making $18 an hour at my last job, but I'm also open because you know what? There are positions who might pay you $16 an hour, but give you 4 weeks of vacation, whereas you're making $18 an hour getting 2 weeks, and you really love to take long trips. Maybe the benefits. I have a family. I want to make sure that the benefits are better, and I would be willing to take a little drop in pay if I can ensure that my spouse and children are covered under the benefits. So you've got to take that into consideration, that it's not just one number. So you can talk about that as well, that I understand that offers do contain a number of different components, and I'm willing to take a look at what you can offer, provided they take into account my qualifications.
Okay. So one thing you brought it up that I normally tell people to stay away from disclosing the salary that you're making right now, just because does it matter what you're making right now? Is it something that you probably do not want to make the same thing when you go out there to match it, right? Unless you have a reason to leave the job or something. Are you suggesting it is good to disclose what you're making right now, so they know that she's not going to budget if I don't offer what she wants, right? In what case do you feel like you should disclose what you're making right now? Is it switch, or is it when you're unemployed? Can you be clear on that?
So I think you can disclose it either way, but when I say $18 an hour, so for internal positions, that your human resources can take a look at the file and see exactly what you're making. So you want to make sure that you're saying bang on the number that you're making, because they're going to be able to look it up anyway. However, for external companies that you've never worked at before, you can pad that number a little bit as well, because you want to make sure that you're moving up, right? So if you are at $18 an hour, you might be saying, I'm at $20 an hour now, and this is what I'm looking for, right? And so regardless, that company will have their range, but I think it's okay to give the company something close to what you're looking for. You don't need to give them the exact amount that you're making. Like I said, I would actually recommend bumping that up slightly, not like $20,000 or an extra, a large amount that's unrealistic, something that's realistic for the company, and giving them an idea, because if you won't take below $20 an hour, then you don't want to leave it open, because now you're wasting their time. Yeah. And they're coming in at $16 an hour. They're never going to get to $20 an hour. Right.
Okay. So I like that. So how about I'm thinking about It has happened to me as well. So, there was a freeze. There was a salary increase freeze for us. And their company, when they hit the cap, regardless of whatever tenure they have, they're not going to be, the salary is going to be same from 5 years before, whatever, you know what I mean? So like, if we say I am at this right now, my only thing is like, what the other people, recruiters asking whatever, what are you making right now? First of all, I feel like that's none of their business. Personally, I feel like, they should not be even asking. I hope it's illegal in Canada, because in certain part of states it's illegal to ask, what are you making right now? And I've been asked as a job seeker, when people came out to me and then said, what are you making right now? I'm like, you know what? I'd like to focus on what I want to make, and I would not be moving. I like your thing. Like, I would not be moving until like, the offer is this on the table. Now, again, I think it depends on what stage you are in the life. If you're willing to like, move up, like, is it the money? Is it the title? Is it the work-life balance and stuff like that? Right.
Right.
And I'd be cautious on like, like just, as you said, was not giving the number, because then it's like, what if they come back with a lower? Just use it strategically. And I like that approach. Yes.
Yeah.
So now let's say, now I'm going to move on to the different questions, which is more kind of like similar kind of questions, but how would you answer this differently? Why would you want this job? Let's say interview happened. Why would you want this job? Right? Like, how would you answer that question?
So in this question, I think that the hiring managers are looking for a commitment. A lot of people have heard about the Great Resignation, where a lot of people are leaving their jobs. So they want to know that who they're hiring, they're going to stay, that they're committed to the role, that there's really a reason that they want to apply, that they're not just applying to a whole bunch of jobs and will take anything that they can get. And so, it could be, this is where a lot of the research that on the company comes into play, because you want to be able to align yourself with the values of the company. You want to say that you've kind of looked into the company and that's why I want to work there. So, some examples based on what you've told me during our interview and what I've done in my research, I can see there's a lot of positive change and growth going on at this company. And this is an environment that I thrive in. So the thought of joining your company right now is really exciting to me. It could also be, you could be talking about the product is really exciting to me. If it's a home renovation company, well, I do this all the time and this is very exciting to me. It could also be, well, this is a new lane for me. Although I've worked with similar type of contact centers, I've never worked in the property management industry, and I'd love to learn more about that industry. I would also recommend, as an answer here, is I really feel that I've got the skills and experience to make a positive difference here in this role and in this company. And so, most people know that if they feel like they can make a difference and a positive difference, then that's why they would want to apply. So it's really talking about, it could be that your values, I see that you give back, and that is something that's so important to me. And that I would really love to join a company that is so great with giving back to the community. So talking about parts of the company that you've researched that align with your own values. And it's about being honest, right? Because people can tell when you're not honest. So you want to make sure that it is really something that you can relate to.
Absolutely. And I love it. Now, let me put you in a hot spot and find out, like, okay, you're the hiring manager. What is it that it just gets you? It's like, I want that person. When, is there any giveaway for those people who are watching right now as a hiring manager? Is like, what, if someone tells me this, oh my God, it just gets to me. And I think that's really, truly authentic. And, I might hire that person, right? Obviously, they have to be qualified, right? What gets to your heart? And so like, I think that person could be coachable. I think that person is really good. You know what? I think that gets to me. What is it that it just takes off and says, he's hired, she's hired as a hiring manager?
What I'm typically looking for is I'm looking for the fire, like looking for the reason that somebody wants to come in and work. And as you mentioned, there's the qualifications, but it's also the attitude and that fire of somebody wanting to work for my company. I mean, I've honestly had people answer this question of, why do you want this job? Well, it's close to my house. Well, the pay seems pretty great. I've heard the job is easy. I've actually had these answers. Those things don't show me a passion or a commitment to the company that I'm working for. Somebody who wants to learn, who wants to grow, who, can really see themselves in the role. And you get that feeling. It's that, like you mentioned, authenticity. You can feel that, and that's important to me as a hiring manager.
That's amazing. So if anyone's watching right now, I have a tickler on teachindu.com free resources. So Anu is very gracious, and she said that whatever she's talking about it today, the questions that we are asking, we're discussing, she's going to put it all together and she's going to provide to us, Teachindu, and then you guys can download it. Give us a couple of days, maybe by next week, you can go there. There would be interview sections. We'll put it in there, and Anu is going to write that up. And then we'll put the Anu's LinkedIn profile as well there. If you want to connect with her, you can connect too. And we'll put it all, whatever she's talking about, so it's easier for you. So I'm going to jump into the next question. I'm so I want people to get more out of these sessions, okay?
Sure.
So the questions that I have is, why should we hire you?
Yeah, so a lot of times people will talk about, why do you want this job? They'll talk about, well, I want this job because of this. Why should we hire you is really stress about all the differences that you have over other people. Every single one of us is different. And so this is something kind of new that I've been trying out lately. And so, I'd love your feedback on this, Sweta, because you're an expert. But this, kind of an answer, you should hire me because I will bring my authentic, unique self to XYZ company. And this includes my work experiences, my life experiences, from which I've learned a lot of what to do and what not to do, my passion for helping people succeed, my kind and caring side, my roll up my sleeves and get the job done side, and my sometimes silly sense of humor. I bring me, and I can assure you that I will not disappoint.
I love it. I love it. So you've used, of course, you're going to need some examples in there, right? Like, this is what I've done with the experience and everything. One thing I might add on this one would be like, this is where I think most of us miss that. Why should we hire you is not understanding the pain of the employer. When you said I would roll up the sleeves and work on it, right? So for that, I genuinely feel that you need to know the pain that you're trying to be solving for. And I've done that. So let's say if I want to go back to when I got laid off, when I wanted to go back to the same industry, and all the similar industry would have similar kind of pain. You have to understand the pain, right? So I would say, listen, I literally saved millions of dollars for call waiting time or something, call abandon time. And this is how I did it. And I understand that you have the same one as well. Can you tell me more about what's your wait time like right now, right? What's your abandon rate right now, right? So trying to put the company's lingo in there, understanding it. And I've done that actually. And you know what? This is why you need to hire me. And that's why my company got employers of choice, so many times. And I was part of it. I'm super proud of it. And I know that I saw a lot of complaints when I was walking into the branch, when I was calling the call center. I saw a lot of complaint about it. And you know what? This is why you need me to solve that problem. How about that? And I strategically smile, right? So don't forget to do that as well, joke around as well. And I think not talking about their pain is a huge, huge drop down of people not understanding the role itself. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely about knowing about the company. It goes back to that research, right? These last two questions are really about knowing about the company, talking about certain things that you can bring to help them through it.
Absolutely. And that's where the interview is something that you want to sit down by researching everybody, the pain and everything, so you can relate, you can talk in their language. So that way people understand that, oh, she knows the lingo, because everyone has the jargon. Every industry has a jargon, right? The talk that they talk, even the department to department, you need to understand, right? So if you integrate that in interview answer, that'd be perfect. Now, the other thing is, this is huge. A lot of people, I don't know if you have had that. I've had that. Do you have any questions on the interview, right? Like, people are like, no, I'm fine. Like, what do you expect? What kind of questions stumps you? Like, oh my God, it's so good.
Well, first of all, I always expect somebody to bring questions, because to me, if someone has no questions, the feeling that I get as a hiring manager is that they didn't do any research, that they don't really care, that they're just going from interview to interview. So that's what the perception is as a hiring manager when someone doesn't bring questions at all. As far as the questions, I think it's important to get the interviewers talking, because you've just done a whole bunch of talking for whatever it is, 45 minutes or so, and maybe you've got 15 minutes left, and now you've got some questions. So have a list of questions, because some of those questions that you have might have been answered at the beginning when they did an intro. So don't just have one or two, because then you're stuck at the end, right? You don't know that you already answered my questions. So have a number of them so that you can definitely ask at least a couple, but be cognizant of the time as well. You don't want to ask them 20 questions if you have 7 minutes left in your interview. So be careful of what that is. But, how long have you been working at the company? What do you like most about working here? What do you find challenging? Can you tell me about the culture here? Can you tell me about the training and onboarding? This is what we referred to before, that I would receive in this position. Can you tell me about the structure of the department and who I would report to? I always like this one too. What could I do in the first 90 days in this role to really impress you? If you've got the manager, so maybe it's not that you're talking to HR, but you're talking to the actual manager who you'd be working for. That could be that. Different levels could warrant different questions. So, maybe a higher level position. How do you see the company evolving over the next 5 years? Who are your biggest competitors? Because a CEO or a VP would want to talk about different things than a day-to-day manager, right? Always, obviously, you want to know what the next steps are in the interview process. That's a very general question for any interview. But those are some questions that it's important. And again, if you see certain things on the website when you're doing research and you want to know more about it, that shows that you're doing the research, that you're interested in that company. So there could be some specific things that you get there. But these are some general questions that are really important and will get people talking. I know people love talking about what they like about working at companies and about where they are. So this is great to get them talking.
Absolutely. And I want to even go further than that. And I love the point that you said, have tons of questions ready, because you never know, in between the interview sessions, they might have answered all those questions. And you don't want to repeat it yourself either, because
Right.
That's active listening now, right? So that's why I was telling everybody, it's, don't wait until that last minute, make it conversational, just the way that, when they're talking about something, it's like, hey, have you failed the deadline? Have you, let's say, for example, have you not met any performance that you're supposed to, complete the task, or do you not meet the target? And then you come up with the example. And then you can ask right back, because it's relating. It's like, could you please tell me about how the performance is going to be measured, right? What are the targets like? What are your KPIs? Because bang on, you don't want to wait until last minute, because and what that does to people is you're not talking so much, and now you're taking breathe, and you can have a sip of glass of water and stuff like that, and let them talk, because watch it, they would love to talk about it. Management, oh my God, they manage this KPI all the time, they coach all the time, right? And that's when you know what kind of management style they have too. Some managers are very, very aggressive when it comes to target. Some managers are really laid back, right? You would get to see their style of management. Personally, I've done that. Don't wait until last minute. And I love the fact that you brought that up, is, watch out the time, because especially when we're doing interview as a hiring manager, we're on a go. We're on that limited time, time, right?
Yes.
You got to watch that, because right after, someone else is going to be coming and it doesn't look good. I love that takeaway. So what else? Jazz Melkor says, do you know him? Great Sanu.
I don't.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ben says, hello.
Oh, yes, I do. Sorry, Jazz Makar. Yes, I do. I just looked at who it was. Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Jazz.
All right. So what is it that we're almost at the end? What else do you want to talk about? Last one question that you feel like, I think this is my question. I would ask it all the time, or this is a question when someone asks me, I love it. Give me one question that it just goes brilliant. I love that question.
It's funny. I think that a lot of people, it's a very simple question. The one I've already mentioned is, what do you like working at this company? They really like talking about, they love talking about the people or the incentives. They love talking about, how happy they are at work. And typically that's a good question to ask, because that'll take a bit of time, and it ends on a happy note, right? Because they're talking about things that make them happy at their job. So I find that one is a good one. And, the reception that I get from interviewers when I've asked that question in an interview, they always smile and love to talk about it.
Yes. And you know what? I tried my luck every time. I went for a couple of interviews, and I said, I actually, if I felt right and I felt like, you know what, you could feel the vibe, right? Like you could feel the vibe and you feel like, okay, I think this is it. I think I can see myself working there. And I would ask, like, what's a policy on giving a tour? Is it okay for you to give me the tour of the building? Just so a cafeteria, whatever.
Right.
I've tried that and I've done that. And all those things that I've done, eventually got an offer later on. And I'm thinking, you know what, because I earn that, right? So don't like sit there and say like, this is not only you, this is not only about like, them. You are judging them exactly the same way they're judging you as well. So ask those questions. The answer would be what? No, we can't do that. We have a security protocol. That's fine, but ask strategically. Hey, I love it. And especially, I think one time I heard this company had a beautiful cafeteria, and then someone was working there. And I said, one of my colleagues work here. You know what? I love to see your cafeteria. It's amazing. I heard, and they're like, oh, okay, let me show you. Right. So it's, so you're bringing those conversations and you're trying to put the human aspect to it. What are your thoughts on it? Have you tried that? Would you try it?
I would definitely try it. Why not? I mean, again, right now, a lot of interviews are remote, unfortunately. But if you're face to face and you can do that, these are things that help you stand out, because not everybody's going to ask those types of things. They're not going to ask for a tour of the building. They're not going to say, hey, I know about this and can you show me? So that makes you stand out. You're going to now be the person that, hey, remember, she's the one we took on the tour, right? And so, or she's the one who's learning Spanish, or these are these little key things that a lot of people won't ask, and that makes you stand out. And so that's really, really important. Whenever you're writing your resume, you're in an interview, you're doing your LinkedIn profile, it's all about standing out. So what are those things that you can do or say to stand out? And obviously in a positive way, because you can stand out in a negative way.
That's right.
But I think all of the things that we were talking about today are to make you stand out in a positive way, for sure.
I love that what you said was, you know what, everyone does the same thing. How do you differentiate yourself? And asking for that too, or like, talking about, hey, I'm learning Spanish. And again, why you're putting that, going back to tell me about yourself, is right there, a little bit of personal touch, stuff like that, right? Like, it matters because people are going to think about it. And if you do research, trust me, let's say if you've gotten the interview, if you do research about the recruiters and hiring manager, you can see it. Even I've tried that option of like, hey, you moved from here to here. What does it feel like, changing the whole different, like, aspect of your career? Like, can you tell me about why did you do it? Right. So that makes it keep in mind, it's a hit or miss. Depends on like, who they are as a person. Some people don't like stalking. It's like, okay. Some people loved it. Oh my God, the person looked me up on LinkedIn as well. Right. So go with the flow, but I definitely want you to research hiring manager and know about it. Because what that does is the person who just pivoted and the new thing, they might not know a lot. And then, you know what, you might be subject matter expert for them and you already know what to say on it, right? And they might need you more than you even think. What are your thoughts on it? Researching, and basically I say to my clients, stalk the hiring manager. What are your thoughts on it?
You know what? I think it's critical. I actually read an article on LinkedIn recently where a number of hiring managers and HR folks were responding to the question of, should somebody contact you directly on LinkedIn when there's a posting? And a lot of the answers were yes. Like that, if Joe Smith is a poster, and you can see that on LinkedIn who the poster is. What I do is I would send Joe a little message saying, hey, I'm super excited. I just applied for the position you posted. I send them a message because, they want, that's exciting. And a lot of people won't. A lot of people, oh no, I've done the protocol. I have posted or put in my resume, and that's it. Send Joe or whoever the hiring person is, Julia, a little message. Say, I'm super excited and I've just applied. Because as you know, there's those ATS systems. Well, sending a message to Joe or Julia just directly now could have them say, geez, let me go look at it. I've just looked at their LinkedIn profile. Let me make sure I made it through ATS.
Yeah, that's good. Like, I love that, because that's what exactly I did myself as well when I applied for it. I always had that system of like reaching out, like, hey, I applied, and you know what, here's a resume and cover letter, right? Like, so I did that. But then one thing that I want to tell everybody is know the protocol, as you said, right? Sometimes what happens is certain companies, especially public sector and everything, they disengage because there's a protocol, conflict of interest, disengage from communicating with the candidates, find out, research, don't push it. And know who are you sending it out to. Otherwise, that might disqualify you as well. Be very careful, but you got to do a lot of research on that. It's amazing. So anything else you want to add?
You definitely don't want to be a stalker, but it's okay to reach out. But if you don't get any answer, that's okay too. Because as you know, as you mentioned, there could be protocols. The only other thing I wanted to talk about, Sweta, if you're okay with it, is the fact that sometimes people will bring up in an interview things that you don't have. Or, I mean, and I know you and I've talked about, no Canadian experience, but it could also be, hey, you know what? You've never worked in this industry before, or you haven't managed people, and this is a people manager position. So it could be a number of different things. And it's important to really be prepared for a question that could highlight something that you don't have, and know why you're still good for the position. So as you're applying for positions, you don't need to have 100% of what is required to apply for a position. And so that's why we know that there could be questions that come up that, hey, I don't have that. But know exactly what you do have when you're answering, and tell that person what you're willing to do to get there. So for myself, I've worked in many different industries. So if I were to join into or interview for a company that I've never worked in, I can say, you know what, I have worked in a lot of different industries where I knew nothing about that industry. And I was very successful because I did the work. And that is my experience that I know that I need to learn. I love learning. And I will do the work to get there as quickly as I possibly can, because I also have all of these skills that are hard to train and hard to learn that I'm bringing with me. And so most companies and most hiring folks will know that to learn about that specific industry, to learn about certain things, it's not that difficult. And so you want to really stress those transferable skills that are harder to come by, and focus on what you do have. And kind of, like the Godfather, I think that one of the lines in there is, make them an offer they can't refuse, because you're telling them all the fantastic stuff about you.
I love it, because I almost forgot about. Thanks for bringing that up. Let's talk about, before we wrap up, for those newcomers who are watching right now, I know no Canadian experience does come up. So what would you like to hear as a hiring manager? When like, you don't ask, obviously that's a discrimination factor and stuff like that. It doesn't matter if they qualified, right? Unless it's a regulated, you need to make sure that you know all about the regulation factors and license and certification. We're not going to go through that. For those who are qualified and they're not getting those job offers because they've been scanned out because of no Canadian experience, not living in Canada, what would you like to hear from them as a hiring manager? How should they handle that answers? Like,
so one of the first things, Feta, that I would say is to try to avoid being scanned out. So I have seen a lot of new immigrants to Canada where they put in the city or country that they worked right on their resume. I recommend not putting that on there, because what needs to be on your resume is your job title and the company name. If somebody chooses to research that company name to see that's in Pakistan or to see that's in Abu Dhabi, that's up to them. But on your resume, you don't need to put the cities. And so right away, I would say keep it to job title and the company name, and of course your description, your accomplishments, those kinds of things like you would normally put. But make sure that you're not putting that in there. Make sure that you're getting coaching from someone like Sveta or anyone else that tells you what are some of the the resume writing practices in Canada. As an example, we don't put our pictures on our resume, whereas in some other areas they do. And so you want to make sure that your resume, from a look and feel perspective, looks and feels Canadian, so that people don't need to weed you out because of those things. Don't put your address on their resume. Those are key things to avoid getting weeded out for those reasons. Because really, once you're in front of someone, whether it's virtually or in person, but when you're in front of them, that's where you're going to sell yourself. It's not about where you got the skills. It's the skills that you have, right? And so put those skills and those qualifications in the resume, but don't put the locations. You don't need to.
Yes, I agree. And I tell people as well, like, unless you feel like, you know what, you're so, you want to show it, it's totally up to you. But that's how you just literally, give them based on the qualifications. There's no need where you earn that, right? Now, let's say, I get that point. Let's say that, you know what, they got, because it happens, they get to that. Okay, well, they scan the resume, they're like, okay, this is a person. On phone call, it comes in like, oh, we thought that it was in Canada, whatever, because whoever didn't do the research and they liked you, but then and they hear you, usually it's interview. Like, how would you want them to address that barrier of, like, if they ask you or whatever reason? They should be.
Yeah, I think if somebody's asking you if you don't have, or saying you don't have Canadian experience, then I would say be honest. And in some of my cover letters, I will say, I know, say there's certain key qualifications, and one of them I don't have. Sometimes I'm say, I know that you're looking for this. I don't have this, and this is what I do have. It's all about, what do I have? Don't focus on what I don't have. Let me tell you what I do have. And I do have to call out, I just saw a message from Joe, and he's posted it in Spanish. And he says, I love that you're learning Spanish. Thanks, Joe. Good to hear from you. I had to say something because I do understand what that says. Yay.
That's amazing. I love that. So with that, we want to wrap it up. And thank you so much for watching. And a couple of things that you wanted to take away from the session is, there's a tickler going on, teachanddo.com free resources. We're going to put all those things, Anu's going to put it and give it on the Teach and Do. We'll put it on that, and then you can download it. There's already free resources for newcomers to Canada and all the people looking for job boards, and all the tips, how recruiters find you and whatnot. It's on a free resources. You can go ahead and download it for free right now. For this question and answers and sample that Anu's going to provide it, we will put it by next week for you. Keep on watching, subscribe, and whenever something's uploaded, you get that at first. We have YouTube channel as well. You can subscribe to our channel for any other future live for career tips. Follow our Teach and Do page. We put all the materials in there as well. Teach and Do on LinkedIn. If you want to know about the resume, LinkedIn, interview, anything, sky's the limit within Canada. You can go and follow our channel as well. So if you're open to connect, I guess, how could people be in touch with you if they want to talk to you about anything?
Yeah, anybody can reach out to me via LinkedIn. What I ask is that you don't do the generic, I'm going to connect with you and just put your name and don't put anything. Please do a personal message. Would love to know, a little bit about you and your message, and then and that you want to connect and why you want to connect, so that I know how I can help you, or what we can do to help each other. So please, I definitely love people to connect, and I love helping folks, and I will continue to do that. So if there's any questions, you can certainly send them through LinkedIn. But the only thing I ask is, please put in a personal message.
Oh my God, that's a good one, because a lot of people, they just connect. And I have actually, you can follow me, everybody. I have maxed out on connections, but you can definitely send me open message if you have any questions related with this or career tip. Mm-hmm. You can also set up a discovery call with me on teachanddo.com appointment sections, and I'd be more than happy right here. If you're new to Canada, laid off, and you want to switch, you can definitely talk to me by booking in our appointment calendar. So I'll sit down and we'll go through the assessment and see if we can work together and help you bounce back as well. Well, thank you so much, Anu, for coming in. It means a lot, and you've educated our viewers so much. Hopefully there are tons of takeaway they're going to walk through. Also, thank you for providing a sample as well a little bit later on. I know they will love it. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for having me, Swetha, and keep up all your great work that you're doing with your followers.
Thank you so much. You take care. So hang in there. I'll backstage, I'll come and talk to you. But thank you so much for watching on YouTube and Facebook. If you have any feedback about this, if you'd like to see more of these sessions with the other hiring manager, feel free to send me open message on LinkedIn. I'd be more than happy to invite the guests like Anu. She's been fantastic. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.